out, but tell us what that means to know the borderline between this state or this department you have access to changes your situation by night and day.
I mean, there are other people, like I said, mine's done. I mean, there's nothing can be done, except now I've still got the post-traumatic stress disorder, and now I have lupus on top of that. And again, another medical issue that medical marijuana could help.
If the bill's
It's
passed,
maddening. It's maddening.
if it's done in the right state,
Yes.
lupus is not even in the conversation in Tennessee
No.
because our bill was too broad, quote
Yes.
unquote. So what when you hear statements like David Reagan from the Tennessee Department of Health say the bill is too broad, what does that sound like to a person like yourself
Well,
who needs this?
I mean, for right now, like the post-traumatic stress disorder, it is, if I'm understanding it right, it is limited to military.
Essentially.
Yes. And lupus is not even covered in it. I'm not sure or not. Is chronic pain covered?
Depends on what state you're in. For Tennessee, we don't have
Tennessee. I mean, our bill.
Oh,
the
for us?
Kooser Coon Medical Act.
Oh,
the one,
Kooser Coon would have included it.
yeah.
You know. So anything that has epileptic seizure symptoms.
Yes.
And that would have covered a lot of different diseases.
Yes.
You would have had multiple sclerosis, cancer, HIV. What were some of the other bills that were on there? I mean, conditions that were on those.
Well, we know the PTSD was.
Post-traumatic stress, yes.
I'm not really sure of all of them.
I have a copy of it. We can take a look and go over those 14. But none of these are conditions that a normal person could go into a doctor and fake at all.
I mean, you can't. And some of the treatments, and a lot of the problem that people have with medical cannabis is, honestly, it's the, oh no, I don't want you having that. That's going to make you feel good. But what they're not realizing and what people aren't taking time to consider is the Charlotte's Web. I mean, you know, they could call it the hippies horror because it in no way get you high.
Right.
You know, the THC
And
levels
it's called
are.
hippies disappointment.
I'd rather hippies horror.
Yeah.
Oh, but you know, and the spectrum. I mean, even with what the medical cannabis could do. An aspect that I'm interested in is the research that could be done, that can't be done without having legalized medical cannabis in our state.
And even though we would like to see 1,000% more out of our legislation, that is the one aspect that I must admit, the bill that was proposed and can be considered by Governor Haslam about CBD oil in Tennessee does allow for one of those studies. So that is one aspect we're happy to see come, you know, in some form. We need so much more, but at least it's a beginning.
But, you know, we've got to take small steps. And
I see that's
and we don't, we've got to take small steps because that's just the way the ball bounces here in Tennessee.
That's the issue that I have with it. Everybody says we've got to take small steps.
But we don't have to.
Yeah, we have to take small steps because everybody says we have to take small steps.
Kooser Coon would have been a big giant step.
Even beyond that, Kooser Coon to me was a compromise. We were saying, really, we need so much more, but we're willing for these people who need it so clearly and so desperately, we're willing for them to get it first as a compromise. For us to have to compromise even beyond that, is really saying that these aren't people who are trying to compromise or have a conversation with you. These are people trying to shut the door on you, and you've got to claw your way in to get anything at all.
If you notice from my shirt, I just graduated from a class here that's offered every year in Tennessee. It's an 8-month class. It's Partners in Policy Making, and it's a advocacy and advocacy and policy making training class for those with disabilities and those who are caregivers of those with disabilities. And medical cannabis could have helped the majority of the people in our class or the people that they are caregivers for. And just the research aspects, again, like I said, there's research being done in other places on medical cannabis and autism. You know, and one of the big things we talked about in this class is the lack of finances in our state. You would not believe the number of our disabled people in Tennessee who are underserved because of lack of revenue. Could you imagine the revenue we could get if Coos or Coon passed, or a bill like it, or even a better bill?
Bernie Ellis had projections of $100 million in the first year.
And that's highly likely. Highly likely.
A lot of people were saying
and that money could be used. That money could be used for these people who just took this class. For all the kids, for the kids who have autism, for the kids who have epilepsy, for the people who have MS, everybody. And it's mind-boggling, it's ridiculous how this issue has turned not into a political game where, they heard during the hearings, they heard stories like mine. They heard stories that are even more traumatic than mine. And it didn't faze people.
They were able to say no.
They were able to say no. I did a speech when I was in college on why marijuana should be legalized. And I used my story as an example. And my teacher, she was like, who could refuse you?
Someone who doesn't listen. That's the issue we're also facing here in Tennessee. Bill Haslam literally said, I've never read the bill.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we have leadership that simply from the beginning is willing to ignore your voice utterly, what do you think we should do about a politician like that?
The thing you should do about a politician like that is, first off, when you see on Facebook, when you see something on Twitter about a bill that's related to anything like this, comment on it. Call your senator. Email your congressman. Snail mail if you have to. And your voice can be heard. And
how do you get that person to come out who just writes off voting? Oh, I don't do that.
You could be me sitting here. Think about that next time you go to the poll, or next time you don't go to the poll.
There you go. They're helping to make
and
this
the
happen.
bad thing is, I learned in this class, and it broke my heart. A lot of good bills have been passed in states because there's somebody in the Congress or somebody in the Senate who has been personally affected by a tragedy or something like that.
It becomes important when
it becomes important when it hits home. And that's sad, but that's true. And another sad true thing is, it's a political game. And the one thing you can do is, next time when we have an election,
like this November,
you make it, because they will answer you. Make your person who's running point blank, out and out, in public, on the media, say what their stance is on the medical cannabis issue. Don't let them hedge around. We've got news reporters who've been playing softball.
Man.
And the time for playing softball is over, in my opinion. I think it's time for, we've made steps. We have made steps, no doubt, because we've got more media coverage than I expected, even though East Tennessee, we need more. But we have made more steps as far as education. And there was an MTSU poll, 75% of people who took that poll thought that, yes, we should have medical cannabis legalization in Tennessee.
Why do you think that difference is there? Because obviously, from polls like that and others that have now come out,
I know what the difference is. The difference is, as individuals, people are standing up and saying, we don't like this, and we do want medical cannabis, but these people belong to different organizations, and that's where a lot of our problem is we've got people from organizations who are saying yes, 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 but you have these organizations of, different medical organizations, different nurses organizations, educational organizations, different disability organizations who will not stand up and as a whole say, hey, we are this organization and we want medical cannabis. I know I'm not discounting what individuals can do, but there is a benefit to having a force.
Well, for our political leadership, why do you think that gulf is there between 80% of the public wanting something and 2%, 3% of the legislator coming out and be willing to be a proponent of such a thing? Why is that?
Because it was a Democrat who sponsored the bill.
So it's just nobody likes Sherry Jones.
Exactly.
So we literally are putting our state's welfare in the hands of people who are letting things play out like a high school popularity contest.
Yes, and as a country, though, just honestly, our country's divided between red and blue right now. We are totally more divided as a country than we have ever been before. And if a Democratic senator or congressperson proposes something, the Republicans are just going to pretty much oppose it just because it was put forth by a Democrat.
So these are the reasons we have to take the power for a decision like this out of a group like that's hands, because they're unable to function when it comes to the big decisions about our state's future. We've got to make the decision ourselves. And the only way you can do that is by coming out to vote in November. Even if you don't care about the other issues, you don't even know who your local mayor or representative is. This is the one thing that this November you should come out and make sure Tennessee sees reform. This year we should see change. We've got to make sure we have change.
And like I said, call the offices of the people who are running for re-election or who are running for election. Call their offices, email their offices. Hey, where do you stand?
And see, all of those things are good. That's an effort that's essential for this year. But we find ourselves in a problem when it comes specifically to the governorship, because he's running unopposed this year. We're literally going to have another 4 years of leadership under a governor who's not going to be challenged for that leadership. So he essentially has been giving a pass to do whatever he wants. That means it's up to us, people like you and me, to give him a reason to make change possible in Tennessee. That CBD bill that people have been fighting for months now, there's been a lot of work put in the House and the Senate and all around Tennessee to get that bill finally pushed through. There's one thing that could derail it, and that's if Bill Haslam just doesn't do like this on a piece of paper.
From what I've heard, he's gonna sign the
That's what we hope.
the oil bill.
That's what we hope.
The cannabis oil bill.
That's what we hope to see. However, if he were to veto
if he vetoed it, yeah, he could, but I don't think. Again, like I said, it's a game because.
And see, everybody else is a game that they could potentially lose this November. He's got nothing to lose.
He's got nothing to lose.
So it comes down to, do you trust Bill Haslam, a man that right now the FBI, for example, has some questions about when it comes to business dealings for him and his family. Just to give an example of the kind of things he's free to do in the state of Tennessee without the threat of very much repercussion. So.
But, Tennessee is the Republicans have the
stranglehold,
super majority.
So that means it's up to groups like us to even that.
But the same people that, there were people that voted on the poll for MTSU that they are for medical cannabis, but they're the same people who, if he was running against someone, who would still vote for Haslam. So again, this issue that should be an issue of compassion, of caring, that's why I'm on the board of it's Tennesseans for Compassionate Care,
Got you.
And
we gotta cut it and get the shirts. I'm about to go grab those shirts right now, but we're gonna come back and do a second part. So let's go get them shirts, and that way you'll be able to get your shirt now. So we just got the message for it. I want to go.
So we're leaving everything here.
You want to? Come back. Just leave it set up. Come back and finish. Boom.
the kids are
Turn
wanting
it
to
off?
start a normal junior